well. I didn't think, though, we talked enough about other cores. We talked about core values, but I thought we could talk about other cores. I could, like for example, my core. I think it's somewhere in there. I was thinking, my children love playing this game called Apple Core, right? It's where they eat the apple, and it's always me. And they ask me, who's my friend? And I'm like looking around. It's like, well, it's just my children, so it's me. And they throw the apple at my face. I'm like, what was that all about? I guess it's a Donald Duck commercial or whatever back in the day. But anyways,
He's such a comic.
thank you. Tip your waiter. No, but seriously, you guys could take a break if you need to go to the bathroom, gentlemen. If you go to the second stall in there, tell the monster I created earlier hi. I might miss him. But too far, too much? Let's start going back to the cores. Let's talk about the Marine Corps. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. No, but seriously, I was kind of disappointed though, although everybody was talking about wanting to change the word tomorrow out of the mission statement. I had this whole song that I was going to sing, and whenever I told my students about the mission, and with taking the word tomorrow out of it, I can't do it now. So I was really disappointed that people wanted to get rid of tomorrow. You want me to sing the song? All right, it goes like this. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow starting at the end of every day. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just a dream away.
I don't know if we can deprive our students of not hearing that.
I know, thank you. So I think definitely got to keep the word tomorrow in there. Anyway, so. I hope not. Oh my, are we really?
Oh, there's people on there.
Yeah.
You guys.
Crap. I mean, anyway. Oh my gosh. Hello. Oh, good. I was wondering where Bruce McHenry was. There he is. Hey, Bruce. Yeah. All right. Great.
Morning.
Well, we have been at a training for the Higher Learning Commission. We have gotten a lot of good information that we were able to glean. It was a 4-day, 2.5 hours each day virtual event. It was a lot of information, a lot of people from around the country at this event. So it was really a good experience. I learned a lot, and we're going to try and share a little bit of that with you today. And a spoiler alert, one of the last slides is going to say we're going to be going into a lot more stuff later on in other trainings. So we're excited to share that with you. But with that, Kimberly, do you want to start us off? Or yes, she does, because I'm going to just hand it to her anyway.
All right. So highly formal, right? So Brian and I and Mary Nunn went. So you may remember that Dr. Murillo had initially tried to get 12 people to go, and this was a very popular training. So 3 of us got to go. So we're here to share out with you. If you're interested, please let me know, because I could share like the handouts that they gave us. Because really what they did is read the slides and then like kind of elaborate. So going down. So they talked about the agenda and goal of that workshop was to help us understand program and learning outcomes, to talk about how we define, how we map outcomes, assessment methods and strategies, measures, implementation plans, and then interpreting and using the data. So as Brian mentioned, we went into a lot of detail over those 4 days. There was 1 day for each of those. So today we're going to give you an overview, and then if there's something that piques your interest, loop back with one of us or come to one of the future trainings that Brian and Marianne are going to be offering through the assessment committee. So the first thing I want to do is at your tables, or if you're online, right, chat amongst yourselves in the chat. What are challenges and questions you encounter with program assessment efforts? So just get a sense of in the room who's doing program assessment, what challenges you have. Just talk amongst yourself for just like 60 seconds.
Aligning our outcomes in
You can't see the chat. And if you're online, again, chat amongst yourselves. We can't see the chat. Tisha, you need to like have friends to chat with.
We purposely waited until you ate something.
Courses, what we're saying is some of these courses.
Searching other-
We'll do the assessment component, so you're kind of specific, like how we assess outcomes. Have some-
All right, thank you for chatting amongst yourselves. One of the areas I'm going to explain that I know that I had a struggle in with assessment was having assessment that I felt comfortable with, because I've kind of bounced around a lot trying to figure out what my play is and stuff like that. So that's kind of the thing that I struggled with. But I want to go around and give every table an opportunity to explain something that they talked about. And we'll start here, if that's all right.
Oh, no.
I'm going to shove the mic in your face.
Hi. So I'm Brielle, I'm with the VHS program. One of the areas that we noticed when we did the assessment last semester was that some of our outcomes aren't pulling in correctly into our assessment tools. And so we need to really work to make sure that they match.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's a great resource, and I think Marianne and I can help you with that. So, yeah, you're saying that pulling it into Canvas.
Yes.
Okay, good. We'll have to circle back with you guys.
Just noticed that last semester, so.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Thank you for that very much. Yeah. Do you have anything? Talking to yourself.
With the trades, and I think the extra communication, because I'm not doing the actual assessment per se, but they involve me in the communication, make sure that it hits the target date when it needs to be done. So
Perfect.
positive things.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. All right. How about this table?
The only thing,
Sorry, I'd like to say yours.
well, we was just discussing trying to align our particular courses within the program, because they're more of an AJ-based course and not necessarily program-related courses, although we have emphasis. We push students towards, but primarily, courses like psychology and communication doesn't necessarily lead to a degree.
Gotcha.
Besides the associate degree of arts.
Yeah. All right, good. But making sure they're aligned, that's perfect. Thank you. How about this table?
Actually, that's a great point, right? Because how do the general education classes fit with the overarching degree pathway, right? Because general education is a key part of the work that we're doing here, right? There are expectations and everyone is leaving our organization with that foundation. So if we look at, you remember Marianne talked about the layer cake, right? How do the institutional outcomes, general education outcomes fit in with the program specific outcomes? And sometimes it's skills, knowledge, and habits of mind, right? Do they have the writing skills that they got in the freshman composition classes to be successful in the program classes, right? Do they have the reading skills necessary to be successful in those like math and science classes that are going to require, do they have the comm skills that they need to be successful throughout their program? So we want to see how it all fits together. That's one of the but it's a challenge for sure. So thank you for sharing that. All right.
Yeah, and to jump on that as well, I liked how they talked about at the training that, the definition of a program and being able to identify that. And so we're hoping that we're going to have some information to share later on about some of the things we're going to do with that. So, over here, do you guys have, who wants the mic? Step up to the mic. They're all pointing to each other for those of you online who can't see it.
Loves to talk on a microphone.
Everyone threw Jessica under the bus, so here comes the assessment bus now. You can even hold the mic if you like.
I like assessment.
I love this. I'm in my element. I know one thing we struggled with was just because it's the first time figuring out kind of how to streamline the information that we gathered from faculty observations and kind of their own initial analysis of the data when we were trying to put together something meaningful. So that was one of our.
Awesome. Thank you. You're welcome. And one of the things that we also learned about too is that we don't necessarily need to have this set up as perfect. Let's make mistakes as we go along. Let's just get this ball rolling. Let's make sure we're doing the best that we can and improve it as we go along. So very good. Thank you.
Management curriculum, I see some issues like with block scheduling. Some programs might, benefit from block scheduling when they're not doing that right now.
Yeah.
So like that, yeah.
All right, good. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, so some of the foundational things that we can and should be looking at are student learning, right? Are students learning the things that they need to be learning? Are they learning the things we're intending for them to learning, and are those things aligned? We can also talk about some of the fundamentals of program assessment, which I think is one of the areas that our college is kind of wrestling with right now. And then the last thing is the structure of the curriculum. So faculty, this is our responsibility, our privilege, right? That we are in control of our curriculum. So we're part of a very big district. So when we see things in our assessment efforts that the program needs to be updated, modified, we have a process for doing that, right? We have someone on campus who has a responsibility with 6 load reassign time to support us, right? We have district teams of disciplined faculty that work together to do that. Jessica's nodding because she's on a lot of curriculum development committees. So just looking at all those pieces together.
So one of the things they also wanted to talk about that we went over was the fact that program assessment examines both the effectiveness of the program as well as student learning and how well they're doing. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. The assessment of student learning, what we're trying to do is we're trying to just make sure that the students are learning and that they're attaining their information, they're retaining the knowledge, and they're carrying it on to their careers. The whole point of this program and of assessment is to just make sure that the students are gaining that knowledge and that information. And our program effectiveness issue is that our programs functioning to effectively control all of the overall institutional mission. So our focus isn't, are you doing a good job teaching? Because we all know we're all doing a pretty dang good job teaching. We're trying our best. We wouldn't be here otherwise. The whole point of this is, are the students retaining what we're teaching? And if not, what we can do better. That's the whole point of assessment and program assessment. Some of the components that we learned about are understanding what program graduates know and can do. So like what program learning outcomes in your programs are they able to perform, display in their actions or their work, and being able to follow through to the student learning abilities of each of the students going through our programs. Okay, yeah. Honestly, okay, program effectiveness. We need to look and see how effective we are in our program. And I think Ad Atras kind of talked a little bit about our efficiency, our capacity, making sure that we have the abilities, the resources, all of the items that are necessary to teach the students and make sure that they're retaining all that information. And in cost effectiveness as well. Are we spending too much in areas that aren't being very useful to the student? And we should be able to use program assessment to identify those. Or are we not spending enough? And I think one of the examples that they gave, if memory serves, is there was some kind of system software they were using, and it wasn't even worth anything. They weren't using it. And so they decided to get rid of it, another school, to help save money and put it in other places where the teachers and faculty actually want. And that's what program assessment helps us identify, is be able to know, hey, we have these ideas, this program or this something isn't working very well, or the something we're putting resources towards as far as like to help teach students. So for example, in accounting, I don't really have much. I don't have, got to reassess that. But if we had something that we were spending money on, or we do Kahoot, and if the students hated Kahoot, well, we're wasting our money. And that's something that we need to do and assess. Sorry, finally went through that time in my life. No, my students usually laugh at that one. But anyway, when my voice cracks. But anyway, we got to assess whether or not that is effective or not for the students to learn. And so that's kind of one of the things that program assessment does.
I also wanted to just, as a show of hands, how many of us feel like we're already doing the assessment of student learning? We're super comfortable in that space, right? I know if they're understanding what I want them to know, right? And I'm making modifications, right? I'm like, oh, if that didn't work, formative assessment. I think the program effectiveness, though, how many of us feel comfortable in this space? How many of us have any idea whatsoever about what our program capacity is, or even where to go to get the information to figure out what our program capacity is? Like, what are the components of program capacity, right? What are the components of program efficiency?
What constitutes a program?
Well, okay, that one, I feel super comfortable talking about the program, right? So the credentials, right? So if we have getting students to an Associate of Arts degrees with an emphasis in communication, how many kids can we serve in that space? Like, what does the job market look like? What are the needs of the community? So how much does it cost to have that program? Construction trades, spendy program, right? So cost might be part of our capacity there, right? Impact. So when they leave our institution, how does that benefit them? Do we know? What does the job market look like? What are the transfer opportunities like? So I think for us as an organization, the top one, we're really good at that. We love our students, right? But this bottom one is one that is a space where we can have more conversations, right? So we can together learn what these look like. And then we'll be able to make better decisions with our limited, human resources, fiscal resources, all the things, right? Because right now, we're doing the best we can, and then this is a space where we can get better. I don't know, anyone comments, elaborate? And again, if you're online, I'm so sorry, we can't see the chat. Okay. So here's what we learned about these measures. And again, we shared this slide with everyone else, so you guys can go back, look. So here's what we some of the things that we can look at, some of the things we already do. So just pause there for a minute so you guys can look.
Should I share this? You said this is shared?
Yeah.
So Kimberly, so this, we can get a lot of this information from that program they just showed us, right? The Astra, I don't know.
Right, the Ad Astra. Again, the data that it can display is as good as the data that they've already entered, right? So we want to take it with a grain of salt. But yes, much of this is in there. It's also available in Tableau or other spaces. So we don't have to invent stuff, right?
It's Tableau.
And that is one of the things that I know that Marianne and I have talked a little bit about is the quality of the data. My thought is that, and I haven't run this by anybody, but what we need to do is we need to just learn how to do this. And we need to make sure that we are understanding the process. If the data isn't quite there yet, that's all right. We don't need to make any life-altering decisions with that data until we can make sure that that data is good. But to be able to build the ability to pull these reports, to look at Tableau, to look at Ad Astra, and be able to understand and interpret the data that we're getting, we can go through those exercises and those processes to make sure that we get that information. So when we can validate the data, it'll be good.
How do they measure 6 months of employment? 6 months.
It's actually easier for you than anybody else.
Yeah.
Because you guys have that state dashboard that I can't remember the name of it right now. So what Maricopa does, and I think what many organizations do, is iPads, right? So they're gonna follow students. It's not clean, right? But that's a space that we could look at the tools and resources we have in our reports. We can speak to the tools and resources we have, right? Because all of us, these are what HLC wants to see. So every institution is going to be looking for these, similar data sets. But yeah, for you, it's like in the trades, it's way easier, right? Than for some of us.
Yeah, and this list is not comprehensive. This information that we're even presenting to you is just kind of what they've presented to us. There could be other measures that we want to look at, but we don't even have to do all of these, but we should try to do something. I was gonna make a joke, but I was just say we could track them, like give them iPads and track them. No, I'm just kidding. That's kind of unethical. All right.
So yeah, just clarifying what it's not. So people have concerns that it's an evaluation of individual students, individual faculty members, individual staff. It is not that. So, and it's also not a collection of course assessment data. So again, this is like one of the places we stumbled before. So we just wanted to point those out.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that because I know I have a lot of people that have expressed concern to me about, well, and I've heard, well, you're just wanting to sunset my program, and that's not the case. What we're really doing is trying to help you make it to where it doesn't have to be, or that we don't even consider it. Because if you're proactive at your program review, your program assessments, then you're gonna know something's might be going wrong. You're watching the trends, and you're able to correct that before it gets to a critical area. And that's the whole point of program assessment, is to make sure you never get to that state. And if you are in that state, hey, let's figure out a way to get more enrollment. Let's figure out how to way to get people that are interested in your program. So it's supposed to be a tool. We're not sitting here saying, well, we're gonna get rid of you. No, it's nothing like that at all.
So I have a question. Go back to that slide. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's over here, right?
So I was recently told that like if, for example, we have 5 students that are part of the actual communication degree path, that we're going to be assessing those students. Is that incorrect?
So they did speak to that, and I think that I want to not speak out of turn, but essentially no. So you can do bigger and say, looking at, are we offering the courses that students need to take in order to complete? If they come here wanting an AA with an emphasis in communication, are they able to? Right? And then you can say, you know what, of the people that come, and you can speak in percentages, right? So you could say 100% of the students who come here with an interest in an AA emphasis in communication, 100% are able to get that. Or you can say, you know what, we realized when we looked at this, that we don't offer classes that are required in the AA emphasis in communication, so we need to modify the courses we offer, right? Or shoots, we're offering them at the same time, right? So that's where ad astra there can be. So those are the things you can look at, and then you can say, okay, do these kids transfer to ASU or wherever, and do they continue in comm? Or is this useful in some other way? So some of it can be narrative as well. It doesn't have to all be numbers, right? But it doesn't have to be like these 5 students achieved in this way.
Well, this is just this semester. So like what we've noticed, we're looking at our data and there's an uptick in comm completers, like in the field of communication. They're finishing with that degree because all the courses are being offered here, which is really cool. Yay us. So I have it on a rotation where that one course that's very low enrollment, Alice knows, it's specifically for that degree seeker so that they can complete at South. And it's worked out pretty strategically well over the, 7 years or so that I've noticed and looking at that. So would that be part of that assessment?
Exactly it. That's exactly it.
Okay.
And then you could say the next step would be, right? Is there a scheduling thing? Is there a way that you could, change modality, is there something you could do to make it more useful? Does the curriculum of that course need to be updated? Like what things can we continue with that trajectory, right? So now we've got completers, how can we grow, right? What's the next step? So that's exactly it.
Okay, just trying to write.
To tag on to that, as far as program completeness in psychology, just to tell us, it's not really something that is promoted, but I do try to promote it in the sense that I know a lot of our BH students have what they need to get an emphasis in psychology. And so I tell them, even though you go into the BHS program, you can get this emphasis when you graduate, apply for this degree as well. Is that something we should be looking at? Is like from the back end, do we look at trying to make sure students are applying for those particular degrees?
I would say yes, and because it makes their financial aid complicated, right? So I think that would be a bigger conversation because I think it benefits the students to have more credentials, it benefits the organization to have more credentials, but we want to make sure that we're doing it strategically so that students don't, submit for something and then they get themselves kicked out of financial aid. And Renee might know more than I know about that, but that's something that we can work on, right? And something you can speak to and then we can work on as an organization. Jennifer?
Oh, yeah, I have add on to Corey's question because it's the same. I have students ask me that, can I minor? I'm in the BHS program. Can I minor in psychology? Can I minor in it? I'm like, I don't know the answer to that question. And I do have advising coming in to help with those questions. But in the program, as they're doing program assessment, and if that's a common thing that students want to do, maybe that's some like a conversation to be had between psychology and the BHS program or whatever.
I think that we probably need a process where we're connecting students with financial aid because it's so individual what their situation is. And I know that our system does not allow students, it's called a stack, right? Students can't have multiple stacks, right? And for course applicability and all these things. So we're complicated, but fixable, right? Like it's something that we can work on.
I could see also with what was mentioned, maybe even the engineering students could do an emphasis in math real easily. So we could see how that would work for multiple groups of students if be
Correct.
an
So
advantage.
future state.
And one thing I want to speak to all this too, some questions about, should we track this, should we track that? And from my perspective is, yeah, if you can track it, if it's cost effective though. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to be so far down into the weeds that it's costing us more for the benefit that we're deriving. So if you think you can track it, if you think you can track individual students, I could say that maybe in accounting, I could probably track every student that's going through there maybe. But I'm not sure if that's going to be cost effective. So my approach is looking at it from the perspective of how each of my courses supporting the program learning outcomes and assessing the students at that point in time in those courses. And so I'm not necessarily tracking each individual student, but some other programs might be able to do that. But I can almost assure that if anybody's doing an AJECT or an AJECT B, it's probably going to be very challenging for them to track every single student. And so they're going to have to do it kind of the way I'm doing it. So just some things to think about. One of the emphasis of this training was there is no wrong way. There is no right way. As long as you're as long as you're doing it. Okay. There's always going to be ways we can improve this, make it better. The point is to get it going and then refine as we go.
So, and they did talk about program outcomes, and does everyone know where to find their program outcomes in the Center for the CCTA? Curriculum and Transfer Articulation? Yeah, so if you don't, let me know. So, and I think that this middle bullet speaks to what Brian was just saying, is that we want to make sure we're all teaching to the same program outcomes. And we want to make sure, as I think Corey said earlier, that we are contextualizing to those general education and institutional learning outcomes. Because it all should fit together, right? The students should get the foundation from gen ed, they should get the program specifics, so by the end of the program, they're able to do these things. And all of the faculty understand that, right? Because we're all, kind of moving together. So I think that's, the benefits of having those shared program learning outcomes. We just want to make sure everyone's aware where they are, what they are, and in communication about them. All right, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, of course. So using the right tools, understanding assessment, knowing how to assess, really it's up to you when you want to come as your programs, your divisions, however you guys want to come up with them. The tools for assessment can be almost anything. But it's important to be able to identify and define who's going to be doing what in that assessment process. Maybe you're going to have some third party, maybe your division chair come in and assess the students with some kind of survey or something like that, so that maybe they get critical data that's independent. Maybe you're going to use some kind of test exam question or something. You have various options to be able to do that, and then making sure that that it's sustainable. That if someone were to leave South Mountain, #Shannon, that it continues on in the program, that it's not something that's going to die with whomever's doing it. Because as we were talking about earlier, if we get caught in the weeds and we're doing all this work, maybe that person can do that because they have that ability. They're talented that way. And then the next person that takes that place is unable to perform to that specificality of level, then that program assessment tool dies, and then the consistency across time is going to be lost. And we have to make sure too, and this speaks to some of the data that we're talking about earlier, has to be credible. We have to be able to say, hey, this is our assessment, the data's good, this is the information, this is how we know. And I know that we're kind of, there's some questions about that. There's been some questions today and in the past, and we're, but that aspect of it is in process, and we are going to get there.
And I wanted to talk a little bit and then invite you guys to talk with each other about assessment for learning. So there's assessment of learning, right? What can our students do, demonstrate? So that's of the student learning for our learning. what can we do to improve our programs? So I'm going to invite you guys to talk with each other a little bit about that distinction, assessment of learning for learning. Go you for it.
That's my students what I like.
Assessment.
Students keep saying we want more. It's just so weird because they used to say.
I would.
But I've noticed some students coming in, they want more. So I've been changing a lot of syllabus to be more. I have to pay attention. Home classes, that's weird for me.
So,
I might used to tell them, because we're gonna do great.
So agreed.
The changes, that's different groups of students.
You finding out the critical feedback,
Right?
your students, and then tweaking that, adjusting to that to become better.
Every BHS.
It's like learning, getting different tools in your toolbox. And things for learning. No. So what I did,
Right? Kind of like learning.
so a lot of things are presentation,
So we're actually saying they were doing it.
I teach them to do different part of your plan.
Recordings
Yeah.
And so I've been able to modify some like, let's just do these assignments.
I mean, that might be an assessment.
Demonstrating.
Sorry to,
Making the presentation.
so sorry I stop your conversations. I love the sharing. Does anyone want to share what you talked about at your table with like assessment of learning for learning? I'm like, that's a. Anyone have any brilliant insights? Yes.
Jennifer.
Oh.
The assessment master.
I'm gonna reflect on something from my past.
Thanks, Jen. I knew it was coming.
Content being taught and the pacing schedule that was being used. And what we found was that the pacing schedule worked really well when the classes were blocked. So 90 minutes, 2-hour blocks versus 50-minute blocks. And so the learning was better because you could complete a topic, really answer the questions, and people could leave fully understanding the content. With 50 minutes, it was hard. You kind of halfway through the content, you had to start all over again. And so it broke into the learning process. So that shifted the schedule to be more blocks, and even some 3-hour blocks were advantageous.
So that's great, like a different use of time, right, for the content. Thank you for sharing. All right, Ms. Avila.
So as much as I love on the microphone as well, we talked about it like of learning as doing like the students doing their write-ins, their weekly check-ins, and seeing what are they getting out of our materials that we've done that week. So it's that immediate check-in and maybe just looking at their assignments, but also mostly their reflection on what they're learning. And then of learning is how are we giving information to them? How is the class organized? How is the grading organized? All of the things that we take a look at based off of what the students are saying, but also what we see from them. So.
Right, thank you. All right. So.
All right, so one of the whole point of collecting data and getting it ready is to be able to assess how well our students are learning, okay? We want to look for some different performance indicators to be able to identify if we can improve and if we can change our teaching or alter something in our classrooms so that we can make sure that we understand. And I think we kind of discussed already the distinction between levels of student performance. Not really, but let me go with that. So there's different levels of student performance, and I honestly, I can't remember the exact ones that the HLC talked about. I have it on my notes, but there's different performance measures and being able to assess those students in that. So if you're looking at a multiple choice question across the board, I mean, you know, there's the chance that someone just got lucky or that someone didn't understand the question. There's not a whole lot of data there other than, hey, they got it right or they got it wrong, as opposed to maybe an essay question where they have to explain the information and then you can assess a little bit better of how well you did. So different levels of student performance can be evaluated based on the type of resource.
Sustainability?
Yeah, sustainability. Actually, can you do that one? Thanks, sorry.
So one of the things I talked about a lot is don't make it so heavy, so complicated that you can't use it, or you can't use it with the right frequency. So if there are things that are easier lifts, less time, less effort, more motivating, right? So faculty will get more information about student learning, that require fewer resources and that are less expensive. So they said many institutions that they go to when they do their peer reviews, the first thing they hear from the institution is, we don't have enough money, we need this fancy system. And I had to laugh because we kind of do the same thing here, right? So they said, everybody says that, but actually that's not what you need, right? You can use a Google spreadsheet, right? It's kind of like keep it simple, silly, or, you know. But what can you find useful information from and then actually use is what they strongly recommended. And then, oh, click, okay.
It'll be on some.
So credibility.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I had to get a drink. My voice is going with that. You know, credibility, we're looking at student motivation. If you have them over and you're going to assess them and you're going to give them a pizza party and they're just there for the pizza and they're just signing stuff and they're not really engaged. But if there's a grade affixed to it that's going to motivate them to answer the questions thoroughly, that's kind of what we're talking about with student motivation. Are they really motivated to give you the answers that they really believe will help the assessment? Faculty engagement and consistency, we've kind of talked a little bit about that throughout this process, and it was something that they hit on almost every day and pretty frequently. But the consistency and being able to make sure that we're doing it not only, you know, within the same class several times, but also throughout each semester and being able to look at the data across time. So very important in that respect. So getting the data is very good and necessary, but being able to convert it into something that can actually be used and applied and interpreted and make it into something that can help decision making is what our goal is. Just collecting and saying, yep, 20 of my students got this problem correct and 5 didn't, isn't quite enough where we need. We need it to be able to eventually process, to be able to say, hey, we had this situation happen. Why did 5 people not get it right? Let's look at it, find out why. Hey, do we need more resources? Is it just a matter of a re-questioning? It's a way for us to basically reflect on, are we doing and providing the very best to our students to be able to get them to where they can achieve the goal of gaining that knowledge that we're trying to pass on to them.
And I did want to pause right here because I think this is an important distinction. And again, one of the areas that we're working on as an organization is moving from just proving, right, just reporting, here are the numbers, to what are we doing to improve? So does anyone have a thought, or maybe talk at your table for just kind of 60 seconds about what can we do to move from proving to improving?
Just the report out. Those numbers. Tell them to good change. You see your you see it. Test, what do you reflect on and how does that come back and improve the classroom experience?
Maybe like in the semester, there's like a certain amount of students that and it'll so will drop out.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Say, okay, well, make it more engaging, or what did I do right?
Do we do exercise? Entirety for
That was their sole teaching. One class I incorporated a project. Some good class teach themselves. Just math manipulations, formulas, tests, and sometimes you have to put that all together. Why are we doing all this stuff? So I started introducing a first.
That was
It was not at the tail end, but at the end of the first one, okay, this is the first component of the project you're gonna do because you're gonna help stuff there. That was statistics. The second month, okay, we've learned this stuff, so let's go to the second phase. under that little bilingual spot at the very end, so it kind of was, contextual. Made sense to that as a problem that they had chosen, so something needs to last. And as a result, maybe even though it's a short data set, it's just their community or
Section of it, you know, right?
That's where an advocacy.
Give me something.
Have them choose kind of their platform and their thing and begin with doing the research and then begin with creating context and community and who do you need to target it. And it culminated in.
so you can see it's not just a definition of the law.
All right, I want to bring everyone back together. Thank you.
Learned it that way.
All right, anybody want to share that we haven't heard from yet?
I think we should start with the back table this time, so we can start with the front. What do you guys think? What have you guys talked about today? Someone that hasn't had a chance to speak.
Looks like Braden has a lot to say.
I'm happy to speak. I'm sure I'll miss some parts here because I think some more of it was related to reading and composition. But the general idea was kind of bringing everything into focus. So you go through this data, you have these assessments and answer these questions and get all these ideas, and at times can almost be what can be good ideas and where you notice change could be used can be overwhelming, and you sit here and you kind of think, all right, where should the attention go? And then it winds up going nowhere. So being able to kind of draw back and really focus in on that and what are the items that can be actionable, and then what are the realistic actions that can go into this with time, with money, resources, whatever that might be. But
Thank you. How about this table?
Our new speaker.
Go ahead.
Not sure what the question is. You want to go back to the prior slide there real quick? And we're basically evaluating the difference between data for the purpose of providing data for something as opposed to
Yeah.
improving.
Improving or
Yeah.
improving, right?
Improving or improving. Thank you.
The students learned, or we're proving the students finished a class, right? But then what do we do with that? How do we improve?
Well, we kind of got on the subject of collecting data, who collect the data, and having time to collect the data for the purpose of improving the data, and having program coordinators with that process, and having somebody else that was designated to do that process would be helpful, so that we could see how to use the data to improve it. But it's just like my thought goes back to doing the formative surveys we do in the class. You get information, you find a way to implement it. And I let my students know when I have taken their advice. I say, hey, y'all gave me this feedback, let's try it and see what happened. And so I instantly try to share with them that I'm listening to them, so that they can keep telling me what they think needs to be improved. So making sure that that avenue is there, but then actually finding ways of implementing it and listening to their ideas and suggestions when we receive it. So, yeah.
So it's tricky, right? Like, how do we make sure the students understand what the program outcomes are? You know, how can we ask the students, right, how are you feeling with, achieving these outcomes, right? This is where I'd like to see you, right? We're introducing this concept, it's a core outcome. Do you feel like you understand the basics of this? Are you ready for the next step, right? So connecting our efforts with the program outcomes, like that's kind of the challenge and some of the thought work that we need to do.
So I am the program analysis for the construction trades. So I take in what the professors tell me, the instructors, and I also listen and watch and observe what the students do, because it's a two mindset. They're coming there for the certificate to learn how to do the trade to go out in the market. However, the benefit is they are a college student that earns college credits. They can go into a 4-year pathway. So it's a common, and the academic side is very heavy for them. It's NCCER, and they have to do testing. But a part of that, you also have to have that activity lab. So for us, it's easy to measure if they get it or don't get it. So I think part of it is important is that you have to promote the program like a business. And when you promote it and you allow people to actively say what they do and don't like, it's when we can collectively take that in and say, that lab didn't work quite right, because they need to understand how to read the tape measure first.
Thank you. How about this table?
All right, so we had a little bit of the last two, and we talked about having a growing project throughout the course and how each time we hit a certain milestone, we add that to the project, and the project grows to the next step. That's what we used.
That's awesome. Perfect. Thank you. The thing that they emphasized too at this training that I really appreciated was the mindset that we should have going into these assessments. And the mindset is, are we doing this assessment so that we can report to HLC that we're doing it? Or are we truly doing it to help our students? And that's really where it should be, is our focus is helping our students. We're not trying to do this just to check off a box for HLC. So the most important aspect of assessment is using that data to help our students learn. And if you know something, then go out and do something. Because we can do this, right? We can make those baby steps to where we're going to have this thing functioning in a great way. And we're looking forward to doing that.
All right. So some of it might be thinking about what we do with the information that we found. So again, we talked earlier about the curriculum, right? So many people, the program learning outcomes don't work for me. Well, do something, for goodness sake, right? You are the person to do it. And I think Jennifer talked about curriculum delivery. You know, the way I taught this didn't have the outcome I was hoping for. So part of the reflection might be I'm going to teach it differently. Some of it might be program policies or procedures, right? So that might be for construction trades more so than maybe the academic side of the house. And then lastly, Brian mentioned resources and support. If your program realizes you need different resources, right, that we aren't resourced in the way that students need, and part of that is keeping on top of what's the market doing, right? Like some of our curriculum might be out of date. Students might not be learning the skills that they actually need to have in the workforce, like composition, right? We've got to get students competent with AI, right? It's a part of our reality. It's not going to end higher education. It's not going to end composition. Rather, it's a skill we need to help students acquire. So then that's something that we can look at in the context of the program and students learning as the program as a whole, right? And each individual class fits within that.
How does that work?
So how to make it work? We need to build that engagement with our students, with our division, make it to where this assessment is something that's done proactively and consistently going forward. By understanding what your role in the system is, basically the probably person gathering that data and assessing it, knowing that role, knowing what to do is going to be a big help for your success in this program assessment. And creating the work plan, okay? Me and Mary Ann have gone to a lot of the divisions and helped to create your assessment plan. That was something that they talked about in this training that I think I was like, yeah, we're doing that. But if you haven't had a chance to do one of those yet, or you've been busy, I get it, trust me, Department of One here, but we're happy to come and help you, give you that one-on-one time. We are also working on getting assessment fellows that are going to be an assessment expert in each of the divisions that will also be able to help you as we go going forward. That's something that's coming down the line. So we're definitely going all in on this, and we're excited to help you with those.
And as we're creating our work plans, we want to make sure that they are sustainable, you know, keeping those elements in mind that we talked about earlier. So what is the bandwidth that we need to do that? So I think Audrey and Corey talked about like it's because that's just a reality, right? No one has all the unlimited energy, time. Are there things that we're already doing that we can repurpose, right? So one of the earlier slides talked about using something multiple ways. So for example, in a comm class, I'm going to assume that students have an end of course oral presentation. So you could, you know, assess that, and maybe that fits in other assessment measures. So the one activity, the one assessment can fit multiple ways. What are the skills that students need to do to achieve that, right? So you could say, yes, they're acquiring the skills that they need to complete the program. So you can take that one thing and apply it in multiple ways. So it's not an extra thing for you to do. It might be just an extra way of looking at something you're already doing. So
it's for the course, not the program.
the course is part of the program, right?
Well, yeah, but you just said the program, so I got confused, sorry.
So thinking about, like when someone's gonna graduate with a degree in accounting, right? They've left us with a credential in accounting. What are the skills, knowledge, and habits of mind that they need to acquire in their time with us to be successful out there? Right? So then Brian can say, okay, this is the course that I introduce. I don't know, I'm not an accountant, I don't know what you're.
Journal entries, debits and credits, budgeting.
Journal entries, right? If someone can't do a journal, they won't be successful. So you can say, introduce it in this course. And then I'm gonna make sure I'm reinforcing it in this course.
Right.
And then I'm gonna make sure they master it in this course. So he can say, by looking at that final assignment, yep, these journal entries are fabulous. Like this will serve the student well at any workplace. So just looking at how it stretches out.
So you're looking at presentations in my case throughout the courses?
I would assume so in your discipline, oral comp, but there might be something else that you
But
want
it's,
to look at.
but there's also, yeah, there's other, so yeah, the discipline itself is really not just presenting. There's so much other stuff. So then like the psychology, the social behavioral part of it would be assessed in some way, like so on and so forth.
So looking at those program learning outcomes to say like, oh, program learning outcome number 2 is whatever it is, I don't know. And then looking at how is that skill developed over time. But there probably is one assignment at the end of the program where you're like, yep, they've got the skills, or oh, shoot, I need to go back when I do this COM, 100, because these students in COM 210 don't have what they should have gotten back there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And you're like, no, but I want to get out of here. All right. So, you want to learn more? Come join us. Come join us. HLC. There's lots of workshops, we'll have professional growth funds. There's an annual conference in Chicago. It's going to be delightful weather. Or
You can get your degree. Call this 1-800 number and yeah, no, hey, there's a lot of HLC workshops out there, right? There's a lot of trainings that you can do. We're going to be doing some things here at South Mountain Community College. We got in the mix coming up here shortly. Hopefully, maybe by the end of the semester, fall, spring, or summer. I mean, the point is we want to get everybody involved. We want you to know what to do. We want to be there. We don't want you to look at, they don't know how to solve a Rubik's Cube, right? No, I do now, but when I was a kid, I could solve it. When I was 2, I just peel the stickers off and where they're supposed to go. But no, but I wanted to learn it at some point. I mean, every time I looked at that thing, it was like terrifying. I'm like, I can't do this. But then I finally just sat down and learned, and it took me a while just to learn the moves. Now I can solve the Rubik's Cube. And assessment's the same thing. When you look at it, it's an unsolved Rubik's Cube. But the minute you actually sit down and start doing it and applying and learning more about it, all of a sudden it becomes something that might be fun. I like it. I think it's fun. It's exciting. It's energizing for me. I love to see where I can improve. I also love to see when I'm successful because you see both. So it's an exciting thing. And we hope that you'll be interested enough to attend. If not, you can come and hear my awful stand-up comedian attempts. But anyway, we'd love to have you guys learn more about it.
thank you guys so much for sticking around with us.
Yes, thank you. They're online already split. They're like this.
Middle end.
We should have made them talk.
We couldn't see it. I could have played around.
Us do the whole thing.
LA usually.
Gosh, Brian.